Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Penny on Your Thoughts. Today, I'm sharing my thoughts on some things that I see happening in the self help, personal development, healing, spiritual growth journey space. That as a hypnotist, even though these things are well intentioned, I can see how they are actually harming people because we take in information in many different ways. We can be consciously mindful of the information that we take in. We can be in a state where we're critically analyzing the information that we take in. Other times we can just be passively listening, or we may actively be seeking a solution to something that is happening in our life. And when we take in this information, if we're not doing so from a critical perspective, and I don't mean critical as in negative, I mean critical as in being present and not just fully accepting what you're hearing is fact, like not being a sponge, but really thinking about what it is that you're hearing. We can only help someone to the degree that we have explored and helped ourselves. We can take in information and understand information, but our knowing of what it actually means, that lived experience and overcoming it, we can only help others with that to the degree that we've had that experience. For example, if someone came to me and they wanted coaching around grief, I'm not your person. Now, I can help people get closure when there's something that was left unsaid with someone who's passed. I've definitely helped people do that. But for someone actively in grief, like, I'm not your person. I have my own story of how unprocessed grief negatively affected me, and I didn't deal well with it. I gratitude bypassed the heck out of it. And I thought I was dealing with it, and it ended up having negative consequences. But those negative consequences led me to a step in my healing that did give me a knowing and an understanding to help people who maybe it's been years and they haven't let go yet. There's something they haven't let go of. In the wake of grief and processing and moving through, I would not be your person. Therefore, when I see someone who is facing struggles and challenges, and maybe they're sharing and they're looking for resources, because I do provide resources to people, that's going to be a place where I really don't have anything to offer except don't gratitude bypass that. But when it comes to people talking about limiting beliefs and fears, and some people will call overthinking anxiety. Overthinking can be anxiety, but not all overthinking is anxiety. Not all anxiety is overthinking. That's one thing I can say for certain, is that a lot of times when we feel anxious feelings in our body, it's not anxiety that we're dealing with. Whether we are excited to get on a roller coaster or we're in a situation where we are experiencing fear, it's the same chemical response in the body. It's what we think of it that determines whether that feeling is positive or negative. Well, fear is not the only emotion. Fear and excitement are not the only emotions that can cause those physical feelings in the body. When I see people promoting and they're saying things such as, if you are a people pleaser, you have trauma, that's not true. You may have trauma, but that is not a 100% true statement. When someone says, if you have money blocks, then you don't feel worthy. That is not a 100% true statement either. And I've seen statements like these get people caught up and cause them to put themselves in a box of searching for a solution to a problem that does not exist because someone who is a person of authority has said, well, if you're experiencing this, then this must be the cause. There is no black and white in the mind. Everything is gray in the subconscious. Everything is gray because of the way things get interpreted. So you can most definitely have procrastination, overthinking, people pleasing, perfectionism, not being able to let go of control. All of these things can happen without trauma. You can have money blocks that have nothing to do with worthiness if you're someone who is experiencing that. Now, sometimes just because the idea of unworthiness doesn't resonate with us doesn't mean that there couldn't be or that there's not an underlying belief somewhere of I'm not good enough or who am I to have this. Just because the message doesn't resonate doesn't mean that that's not there. But it's not a 100% connection. It's not definitive of who you are. And I'm a healthcare provider. I haven't practiced anesthesia since 2019. I still hold my nursing license at this time. So this bothers me. It bothers me a lot that not only are people who are not licensed, qualified mental health professionals saying definitively that you have trauma if this happens. You have people reading books, taking courses, and studying who have no mental health background whatsoever, telling people what their attachment styles are, that if they have certain symptoms, they have ADHD, ADD. They're using diagnostic language when they don't have the scope to do so. I don't use that language. I was 25 years in healthcare, and there are so many problems with this. One is that when you use language like that, yes, of course, it elevates your authority. If you're marketing in this way, it elevates your authority. Damn right it does. However, it also creates the misperception that people may or may not have training that they don't have. It's why I don't call myself I'm a board certified hypnotist. I have training in advanced hypnotherapy. And then I have an advanced training in the advanced hypnotherapy. I could call myself a hypnotherapist, but I choose not to because the normal, average, everyday person may not realize that doesn't mean I have counseling background. It's okay to call yourself a hypnotherapist if that's what you want to do. Again, it's a personal preference for me so that I don't mislead people. Just know that this goes beyond people telling you that you may have a certain attachment style or that you might be dealing with ADHD. Just lump in whatever label you want. When we're seeking solutions, going back to this idea that when we're seeking solutions, we're like a sponge taking in this information. When we take on labels and identity, we are limiting ourselves. For example, at times, I definitely have behaviors that could be classified as ADHD. Definitely have those qualities and characteristics in my life. I know how to manage myself most of the time, But imagine if I said, "Oh my god, I have ADHD," and somebody says, "Oh, you should implement this project." "Oh, well, I can't. I have ADHD." If you identify with a label, subconsciously, you begin to define yourself, your abilities, and your capabilities as is defined by that label. Don't even realize it's happening. People do this all the time with anything. People will define themselves by labels. And when they experience something that's outside the definition of that identity, it creates problems, not because there's an actual problem there, but because of the way the mind is looking at the problem. Yes, your procrastination could be trauma, but it might not be. Yes, your money issues could be related in trauma, but then again, it might not be. Maybe that comes across as wishy washy to some people. If being open and honest that there is no way for anyone to have a crystal ball and to look at you and say, I know exactly what your problem is. Do I know how to help you solve the problem? Absolutely. And some people will say, how can you help people solve the problem if you don't know what the problem is? That's how I know how to solve the problem, because we have to understand the subconscious mind and to allow the subconscious mind to unravel the issue. There is not a brain scanner, EEG, MRI machine anywhere that can look at someone and pinpoint a trauma, an event, a moment in time that created a false belief, or what that false belief actually is. And sometimes it's not just the false belief that needs to be uncovered, it needs to be the perception that created that false belief. So we can shift the perception around the belief itself. You shift the perception, the belief falls down. It gives you all the room in the world to rewrite something new. Now, I could say 80% of the time, 80% of the time is perfectionism rooted in trying to gain acceptance and love of parent, probably. And when I say love and acceptance, that's not to say that the parents don't love, they're just conditional in the way they show the love and acceptance. I've had many clients that fall into that category where they always had to be the straight A student, they had to overachieve, they had to go above and beyond. And if it was a 98, why didn't you get a 100? And then that converted over into perfectionism because they were wanting, every human wants this. We want the approval of our parents, of the people that we love. And sometimes our parents are just so damn busy. When we were kids, our parents were so damn busy trying to work and have more than enough money and to build a life that they were tired, and our good behavior was just a thing that was expected. It was expected. I've heard this before in my own family. I am not going to reward good behavior. It's just understood that's the way it should be. So then what do you have to do to get some love, some affection, some connection? So for the majority of people, that's where it comes from. But not always. It can come from a lot of different things. But those are my thoughts today. It's a bit of a rant, but I think it's important to understand that when you're going out, you're seeking information, you're seeking to solve your problem, whatever it may be. If you're challenged with something, if you're struggling with something, I don't like the word struggle, but everybody uses the word struggle. So if you're struggling with something in your life and you're out there looking for the solution, be in a critically thinking state of mind when you go watching videos, reading articles, whatever it may be, and just really ask yourself, does this feel true for me? Because I have had cases where people have reached out to me and they've told me, they're like, nothing really bad ever happened in my life, but I must have trauma somewhere because this happened and I must have just blacked it out. That's just not the case for a lot of people. We don't have to have trauma, or we don't even have to experience an absence of the things that we need to create a misperception that leads to these beliefs. It's a dynamic thing. Anyway, if you have questions about this episode, you know where to find me on all the social channels, Instagram, Facebook. Drop me a message. Let me know what you thought. I'm curious as to what you think about this, because it's so easy for us to unwittingly and unknowingly pick up labels, me included. So until next week, bye now.